Hey everyone, welcome to a battle report from Team Covenant. One of your hosts, Zach.
One of your hosts, and I'm the other Yahoo around here, Steven, and in fact, I'm actually in the screen there on the left, so this is going to be an interesting bit of commentary. I'll hopefully provide some useful things, seeing as how I can actually get in one of the players' heads
Now,
quite easily.
this game is the previous Monsterpocalypse Masters event where you and Philip Bolds were in the finals, and right now you guys are doing your map placement. We're on Waterfront Wreckage. You were the first to place, so this was his map. He's using Yashith, I believe.
Yes,
Which you've had a fair number of games against with Mega Legionnaire.
certainly.
And you were, of course, using Mega Legionnaire.
Yes.
So what at this point is your strategy going into building placement?
Well, Waterfront Wreckage is one of those maps where I think I've always had a lot of success on Waterfront. I don't really like to pick it because I think some people have more success there. A lot of the morphers, I'm very terrified of Alpha Asheroth with all his teleporters and whatnot. So I don't pick it, but when I'm on it, I quite like it because the protector forces are highly mobile. When you throw in those teleporters, you can really get anywhere you need to be. And on this map, and I think this will certainly come into play later on, your ability to screen is just unmatchable, really. You can get anywhere on the board with a G1 through a teleporter. You can get absolutely anywhere you need to be. So I felt pretty good about this pick. And what I'm looking for here is basically I just want a very safe setup for myself. That's the key for me. I like it because right there where he's almost placed that music producer, there's a really nice pocket. And then even further south, there's another really nice pocket right on top of my spawn zone. And then in that corner of the map, there's a nice pocket. And then in the middle, if you get a few screens going, there's really nice pockets. So there's a lot of places for Legionnaire to hide on this map. And I was looking at exploiting that as best I could. But really, my opening turn is almost always revolving around guard defense bases and discount. That's really the key.
Yeah, I mean, a handful of 8 dice in the very beginning can be a mountain of an advantage later down the road. Just taking a look at what Philip has already done here, which is pretty clever. He's got 2 Towers of Corruption that are conveniently placed next to teleporters. So, I mean, that lets him pay 1 to drop a Cthulhu Bite or an Elite Spitter and go straight through a teleporter to get wherever he needs to go. He's also placed 2 music producers very far on your side of the board, so that if he can get those knocked down, some of his slower units have even more mobility and he can spawn on that side. And that's big. You might be thinking, there's teleporters, why would he do that? But at the same time, when you can spawn an Elite Spitter inside the Hellfont and shoot right from there without having to move, sometimes that extra 8-eye can be huge.
Yeah, it can be a very big deal. And I think he did pretty well on placement here. He wasn't using more than 2 towers, and I believe I asked him about this, and I think that was a choice that he made. I'm not 100% sure, so Philip, if you're listening, please correct. But I think he said that 2 in the backfield is kind of what he likes, and he doesn't really want to run any more than that. So that was kind of certainly a non-conventional
A different way of
Cthulhu,
taking it.
but it makes it work. Obviously, he's in the finals, so that's where you gotta look at who's right and who's wrong.
Now, I do have to ask, looking at this game as we're watching it progress, you're using the Privateer Press building, and that's not a building that I use too often. A building that is always around just seems to be the kind of building that can cost you the game or something that with that big of a benefit. I know I've had some games against you where I've actually used your Privateer Press building to get something out on your side of the board. What are your thoughts on the building, and why do you place it in the middle like that?
That's something that I need to get better at. When Chris and I played our game in SoCal as well, that was the issue too, is he really was working Privateer Press building, which I essentially gave him in his backfield. And that's certainly not what I want to do. I just wasn't really paying attention. For this, though, when you're talking about Mega Legionnaire, you're talking about a monster who really wants to have a screen at all times, wants to have pockets. There's nothing more appealing to me than the idea that something on the board is going to be there forever. So if I'm anywhere around that Privateer Press building, all I have to do is screen on 3 sides with units, and I'm safe from power attacks. No matter what happens, no matter what kind of rampaging, stomping, power attacking you can do, you're never going to be able to clear that building out. So I liked having it there. I liked it right in the middle where he doesn't have a nice clear shot in any sense to get to me, because Megayasheth is going to have to come over and do something. Now, I was I'm always a little bit nervous about Mega Yash because of the cloak issue with Mega Legionnaire.
Cloak and healing.
Cloak and healing, but surprisingly, Legionnaire has so many tools, and even if he has to be within 2 to make the shot, he can still move 3 away with hit and run. He gets his power drain going, and you can always, the really thing that it kills is the alpha form. It really hurts the alpha form, but as I think you'll see potentially later in the game, the alpha form can still perform against Mega Legionnaire.
Now,
against Mega Yasheth, sorry.
What we see on the top left of the screen here is something that's not an uncommon sight with Legionnaire. You've used your morphers, 2 spawns, and you're getting double discount. And that's like 2 free spawns or 2 free moves. With teleporters, that becomes an even bigger deal. At this point in the game, I mean, you're looking pretty comfortable. You're doing what you usually do. Is there anything else to be said? What else are you looking for here? What are your thoughts?
Well, I see the 2 opening guard defense space secures as basically a free spawn and a free move. So that's going to get something of mine on a power zone that I would not otherwise have had, or it's going to get a unit over to disrupt something. And in this case, it may give me a little extra juice on an attack here, because as you see, he's next to the Tokyo Triumph. That's always set there on a map like this, where you're guaranteed to have the live wire open with those 2 red starting monster zones on his side are next to 2 foundations each. So you can always get placement of a live wire building. I imagine I'm looking at Tokyo Triumph here for an easy 1 damage, an extra power die for killing the monument. I do it with a Fire Karmi, that's another power die. Then I get 1 just for killing the building anyway. So 3 power die, a damage to his monster. And if I really want to be risky, I can do it with as few as 6 action dice. 2 to spawn an elite Fire Kami, 1 to spawn a grunt, 2 moves, and then 2 to attack. So actually it's 7.
And that becomes a lot easier whenever you have the guard defense bases out. That being said, I mean, I know for a while the live wire next to this monster start zones, hit it on the first turn, was a very popular move. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is it worth it to use all those dice to do a damage and get some power dice in the beginning?
In most cases, I think it is. I think it's important to kind of force positioning and force the issue here, but really, more and more in my games, especially at tournament level games, I'm so much more inclined to just go for damage. You can't understate the damaging the enemy monster. This is the win condition. This is the way to, force your opponent to do actions that they would not normally want to do. Limits their offense, and I mean, I think it's a really strong option. And I know he's got a meat slave spawn right there, so he can do a spawn and then a kill. But, he's spending 2 action dice. He's spending his action, so he can't summon off the tower, which means he has no mobility to get over to me and disrupt my power base. These kinds of things are important to consider.
Yeah, I mean, even though he can spawn 1 heal right off the bat, it is still a 2 ADI investment, plus his only action for the turn, so it limits his summon options, and it limits what else he can do.
Yeah.
What we see here, I mean, you did bring the Fire Commies over. You also brought a G1, secured the bank HQ, got the building, did the damage, got the power dice.
Super high odds move right there.
Yeah, and something to note, too, about that opening with the guard defense bases is that you are also getting radar.
Absolutely.
Which is what makes those Fire Commies able to secure the building and shoot the Tokyo Triumph still, and it makes your life way easier.
And now if you look, usually, 2 to spawn the elite Fire Kami, 1 to spawn the grunt, 1 to spawn the grunt G1, and then 3 moves, and then 3 to attack. That's 10 action dice. But you'll notice, since I had those 2 discounts, I was able to spawn a glass Earth Kami and move it there in between both of those guard defense bases. So that's going to get me not only 2 power die on a power up for the defense bases, but also it's going to give me an extra one because safeguard on that glass Earth Kami, which is just an outstanding ability on just an outstandingly good unit.
Yeah, 4 defense next to a building, so you're looking at hitting a 5. You're securing a building mid-board that if it's not dealt with, you get the +1 boost dice plus the 2 power dice because you're a protector. There's a lot for him to have to deal with here. He's going to obviously need to do something to remove some of those units, or you're going to get board control early. Yeah. This is where you see a typical, summon a Cthulhu Bite. We'll see what he does. But I imagine you see some kind of a combined attack to wipe those middle units out. But that still leaves you with the 2 buildings secured in the backfield, plus the Glass Earth Kami that's going to remain there for a lot of the game if he doesn't deal with it.
Yeah, and look at the risk that has to happen here. He can't summon the Cthulhu Bite if he wants to heal. But if he doesn't summon the Cthulhu Bite, that's 2 to spawn it, 1 to move it, then 2 to spawn an Elite Spitter, 1 to move it. So we're already looking at 6 action dice, 2 action dice to try and attack. And the best you've got is, 2/2 on 2 defense, unless he gets the weaken on the Cthulhu Bite. And even then, you're still trying to hit a 3 defense to get those fire comments on the multi-shot. So, you can spend 4 action dice on that Cthulhu Bite attack. You can do all sorts of things, but he went for what I think is the strongest route, and that is coming over to the power base. Go ahead and not only does he disrupt my base just from having a unit there, but he's also going to take a shot at that Glass Earth Kami.
Which is a really good move. That's going to be a dangerous unit down the road. And, he always has a monster turn where he can go deal with some of those units if he really wants to.
Yeah, truly. And he's got weaken on him, so it's 3/4.
Hitting a 5 defense, right?
Yeah, I believe he's aiming at my jet. So I think it's probably a 3, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, multi-shot. Yeah, multi-shot would get the unit.
Yeah.
So
yep.
he hits.
I take
there goes one of your health.
There goes my glass.
There it goes. But you still do have that bank HQ mid-board.
Yes.
Which is a nice 3-die power up.
Very big.
2-die.
And these are, you're looking at 3 of my most offensive units right out there in the middle of the board, ready for action. So it's going to make my next unit turn that much more crazy. But I do think this is the right move. I have 3 power die. If I want to power up into my Hyperform, which I like to do early, I'm going to have 0 power die unless I roll the power up for the Bank HQ, which I probably would do, and I would get 2 from that. So he's making me make tough decisions, and this is a testament to, the skill that Philip has in this game. I'm thinking that Yash at this point is a very big target for me. And if you'll look at the pocket, I assume that I do this move. I don't remember the game entirely, but if you'll see, we're down south, the oil refinery and the insurance company and the stock exchange, all down there. It's entirely possible for me to hyper up, move into that pocket, shoot Alpha Yasheth, and he has absolutely no recourse. He has a 1 damage SWAT if he wants it on a 7 defense. He can't brawl with vampirism.
If he powers up, he only gets 1, so he can't hyper up.
Can't do it. No. So this is just trying to basically, run through the meat bag here. Well,
and because he's groundbound, actually, there's a pocket. You just have to be on the other side of the buildings.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what you do, but you could easily shoot him, and then there's just no way he can do anything to you.
Well, it looks like I'm just going to take the alpha turn here. And I think I did this in order to gain turn positioning on him, because I'm really wanting to be in the second spot.
Remove his units, not have to power up. I mean, you remove those 3 units, and all of a sudden his whole first turn is gone.
Yeah.
He did get rid of your 1 unit, but you'll have a ton of P-dice, and you'll get turn positioning because he can't power up. Unless he does something crazy, he's kind of just stuck on that side of the board.
Yeah, it looks like I'm just rolling for clearing out all those units, grabbing the power die. And the good thing is I'm really in no rush here. I've got repair on my side of the board. The damage he just did is easily negligible. I can clear all of his units, and I've got chain reaction on one of my jets, so the spitters were just easy.
And this map makes it easy for you to get around, so at any point you can get across the board when he's potentially going to struggle because of all the buildings.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the power die differences here.
It looks like you're rolling all your 8-die here.
Yeah, definitely am. Who knows? Who knows why? This player.
So you hit, you're racking up some P-dice. You do take away his entire first unit turn.
Yes.
Well, you still have the units on the board. We'll see what he does, but I don't see a way for him to... he could rampage if he stepped a lot through those units, but for him to clear your entire first turn, it would be a very difficult thing to do, and he would have not as many P-die.
Yeah, and it's looking like, in his situation, you can try for like a stomp or, just a brawl of a unit there. But at the same time, you're in the middle of the field at that point, and you've got Mega Legionnaires going to be coming all the way next turn with plenty of power dice. So you got to watch out for the throws and stuff at that point too. So it's a difficult decision, not an easy one. Or if you were Tim, you would just brawl that music producer and get a big old spawn zone on the board.
Now, I mean, I will say, if he leaves those 3 units on the table, you get another unit turn. You're securing the guard defense base, so you've got radar. I mean, you've got at least 1 damage coming at him, if not 2, if he doesn't do anything to those units.
Yeah, they're sitting there all menacing, like, absolutely.
Yeah, a fire commie, and a G1 are not your friends when you're on the other side of the board.
Now you've had plenty of games against Yasheth as well. At the
I've
hands
had a
of
few.
Tim.
Yeah.
So what do you think about Mega Yasheth? What is the MO of this monster?
From what I've seen, Timmy has his best games are when the one thing he does that Philip didn't do here is he almost always will set up a power base and a fantastic 4 defense all across the board on the Brute's power base.
He loves it.
So he'll power up and he'll hyper up early so he gets cloak and can't be hit by the long range shots. And he'll vie for turn positioning early and make sure he keeps that power base. You'll take a unit turn, he'll be able to reinstall the power base. And he just kind of does that. Mega is really hard to hit, 7 defense cloak, and you can't shoot him from range, so all of a sudden it's a really difficult thing.
Now, Philip right there went after the stock exchange, which is not a bad idea either, because his alpha form was power sync, which is obviously negated by the stock exchange, and that's going to be a big issue for him. Now, you'll notice that he now has to screen on 3 sides, or else he's going to go into that insurance company and that Tower of Corruption, which, if I get a unit damage here, is going to be fatal damage to the alpha. So he's got to be a little bit careful here.
Yeah, and at current, I believe all but the G1 are within range. So you can move the G1 to that corner between the fire commies, and all of a sudden you should easily be able to get a damage in without even using any other units.
Yeah.
Interested to see if you bring more units or if you do something else. You could leave the G1 there and put another G1 somewhere else. But you definitely have a lot of options here. It's an interesting move that he just went out kind of mid-board. Didn't get rid of any units. He could have been 2 spaces to the north and it stomped to get or swatted the fire coming into the stock exchange. It's interesting that he didn't do that because you are securing the building out the gate and you're within range, so there's no reason not to at least, I mean, if you're going to be in range, be in range.
Yeah. It looks like, I don't know, Yasheth right now has to force the issue here. He has to get mid-board. He has to come over and be on the offense. I think he's got teleporters. He can get meat slaves to him. The important thing is not to let Legionnaire play his game here, which he's going to be looking to do with all the pockets and all the abilities to hide on this map.
And remember, I mean, Yasheth is groundbound, so at least in his alpha form. So there are actually a lot of places where you could hit and run that on a monster that has some mobility wouldn't be safe spots.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I mean, even if you were base to base with that privateer on the left, he can come brawl you. But that's about where the story ends.
Yeah. And you don't want Yasheth to brawl you.
No.
I've learned that.
It's a nice brawl.
100%.
Yeah, he has vampirism, so when he brawls something, you do a damage and he gets a health back.
Now, what I've done is I'm definitely going to increase the odds of the hit with this G1, and I've got the radar going on. But I also was very interested in blocking that teleporter over there. I think that's going to help me later in the game, and it's the nearest 3-space teleporter that he has from both of those spawn zones. So that's probably going to help me slow down any kind of forward, unit placement he can use. And we'll see how much of an issue that plays. I like it especially because if you look at the map, you have at the northmost, you have a spawn zone up there by the insurance company that a spitter can't get to a teleporter because of that rubble that's right there. And then a spitter can get to it on the one that's right next to that Statue of Liberty. But if I block this one here, spitter can't get anywhere except off of that one spawn zone to the rest of the board. So I'm kind of trying to prevent that kind of thing from happening.
Looks like you're going with those 4 units. The 2 commies, the 2 G1s.
2 commies, 2 G1s.
The G1 is in range. I miscounted earlier by a space. So this is a pretty high odds roll when you add in the bank dice.
Yep. Which there's plenty of. And it's going to get a power die and do another damage there. So
Yep, and it hit. So Yashith is down to 3, which is a critical level. I mean, all of a sudden, a spire on a building or a flame on a building is lethal damage. So if he doesn't heal here, he's going to be in a very interesting position. Now, go ahead.
His screening, I mean, it gets really tricky now, because the screening has to happen, or else you're getting the form kill on the insurance company. But if the screening doesn't happen, or if the screening does happen, then you're looking at, plenty of probably those units are looking to stick around a little bit. That G1 will stay on that teleporter. I'll keep those buildings secured down there with the repair vehicle. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a no-win. I think he'll probably spawn a Cthulhu Bite here, try to multi-shot those 3 units, but we'll see if that teleporter blockage pays off. Because it's not going to be easy to get all that lined up.
Yeah, and he can summon a single unit through the tower on either side of the board, which is good for him. He hasn't opened up any portals yet, so his mobility is pretty limited. He has no units on the board. Like you're saying, the spitters can only go so far. He's got to screen, and he's got to try to remove some of your units, I think, on this turn. The best way of doing that probably involves a Cthulhu Bite, but what else you throw in there to make your odds as good as they can be, it's going to be tough. And, he'll be shooting either a pretty high defense building or a fire kami who benefits from cover. And because of where he needs to screen, we'll see how he does it, but he might get weak and he might not. So you're looking at hitting a 4 defense unit attack, or at best a 3 defense. And with the Cthulhu Bite, who doesn't have any boost die, it starts to become an issue.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for kind of the next step of Monsterpocalypse. For anyone listening that has just kind of started or has always just been fairly good at Monsterpocalypse but never really broken through, I think a lot of that revolves around thinking just one turn ahead, not looking at necessarily the optimal move given the board right now, but looking at the optimal move given what you can do the next turn with either units or your monster. So, if he's looking at what to do here, I mean, he might say, well, Yashith can take care of those units next turn, so my units need to be doing X, Y, or Z, or I need to start securing a power base so that I can actually do some offense here. Thoughts like that is really where I think it starts to get very intricate in this game, and a lot more interesting for me as far as what is the best move and what isn't the best move. Very difficult decisions.
Yeah, I think one thing that really started upping my win percentage at tournaments like GenCon, even this GenCon, was not just looking at moves that are good for now or good for even the next turn, but sometimes taking a move that forces your opponent into something, like you did here, where the way you've played is forcing him to screen or lose a form. So all of a sudden, he's got to spend, 6, 7, 8 eye on a unit turn to screen that doesn't really do anything from him but make him not die. Whereas your unit turns have been spent either doing damage or getting power dice, or you haven't had to use them on things like screening. So a lot of the times you can take a move or play in a way that forces your opponent to spend dice on screening, and it really gets interesting.
Yeah. Now it looks like he's going to spawn up some spitter and a grinder tank with the all-important burrow, and that Cthulhu Bite's going to get summoned right onto that teleporter, so he's got plenty of places to be.
Brings over the Cthulhu Bite, and then looks like the grinder tank is coming to grind out on the water.
Yep. And then the spitter, where will it go?
Yeah, I'm wondering how he's going to screen the south without... Maybe he's not. Maybe he's planning on shooting.
And I think this is probably the best move. Overall, he has to recognize that if Mega Legionnaire comes over to do this power attack, then really it's going to be good for him. And it looks like he led with the tower there too for transmutate. Which is nice. Now we've got 2 Cthulhu Bites. That's a lot of weakening going on, and they're going to take a pot shot here. See if he can get a kind of a lucky 1-star one on a 2 because of weaken, which I've seen crazier things happen. But that wasn't
Comes
it.
up blanks.
But really, if Legionnaire comes over to get this power attack for 3 damage, that's kind of where he wants me. I'm back in his field. He's got his units with easy access to me. He's got healing, easy access. It's really not the game that Mega Legionnaire wants to play, especially against a monster like Yasheth, which you just don't want to be next to.
Yeah, and then he'll be in his hyper form with Annihilate, and I mean, if you do go to the right side of his base at this point, his backside actually towards Philip, there's still that oil refinery that he can throw you into for 4 damage, and Legionnaire only has 5 health in his hyper form, but the issue for me comes in when you leave that open. You come over, you get a form, and then you can potentially hyper down into a 6 health monster. So even if he does 4, you're not dead yet, and you can get a repair vehicle over on the next turn through the teleporter, or however you need to get it there, and all of a sudden he can't kill you before the next time you take a monster turn, in which you're able to hyper up again, or however you want to go through it. So it's going to be an interesting how you flex here, assuming you take the move. I think you would, getting that form out that can heal so quickly. All it's going to take is a brawl and a meat slave, and all of a sudden all you've done this whole turn, the whole game is wiped.
Now, you played Sky Sentinel plenty.
A couple times.
And you of all people, I think, recognizes that the last thing these terribly scared monsters like Sky Sentinel and Mega Legionnaire want to do is get anywhere near the opponent's monster. So I'm imagining that when I'm looking at this in my Legionnaire frame of mind, I'm imagining that I'm gonna do a 2 blast, get a power drain off, and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean that you will get him down to 1 health, so that's definitely a viable option. You're not in a rush again. You have lots of dice. You can back to back. He doesn't have a power base. There's lots of things in your favor here, which it looks like you are going for the 2 damage.
Yeah, just a step and then a 7 speed move, and I'm next to that EPP, but Legionnaire has hit and run, so I'll be able to move into a nice safe pocket over there by that oil refinery. And we'll see if this hits. Very high odds, Mega Legionnaire, when I'm playing him. I always roll extremely high odds because there's just no reason not to.
Looks like you got it.
Got it, and it's a power drain, and then we'll hit and run back into that pocket there. And this is frustrating.
This is where Legionnaire becomes very frustrating to play against, because
there's just no way around it.
I mean, he could hyper up and then not have any power dice left, or he could use all of his dice to maybe get around, and that's about it. I mean, he can't swat you. He can't get to you for the brawl.
Mm-hmm.
There's not too much. You did use all of your dice, though. So a nice rampage into alignment here would, if he stepped down to the left and then down 1, rampage opens up that portal. All of a sudden, he's right next to you, has 4 dice. And then he's got a nice little move into the Empire State Building, or lots of various options.
You might think that, and a lot of people would, but if he aligns here, let's say he aligns on top of that teleporter, I've got a spawn nearby that's going to get a fuel truck right to Legionnaire.
That's the issue.
It's going to move him right to that back corner next to the statue and the Imperial, and he's wasted a turn.
Yep.
So this is the grand issue. It's not like Mega Legionnaire can play this really, really just ping and run game, and he's almost impossible to get to. But even when you do, he's got a fuel truck.
Yep.
The fuel truck. So it's just very hard. You really just have to clear the whole map, which is why I like Privateer Press building so much, to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, it is interesting. And fuel truck is definitely one that can get some people unexpectedly. They use their whole turn to get next to you, and all of a sudden you get a full movement, which is pretty crazy. But this puts Philip in a really tight spot. He looks like he's swatting to get rid of both your fire commies, and it looks like he does. I don't know if that's what he's swatting into or not. No, he's going for the building.
There you go. Opens that pocket up. I think that's a wise move.
Yep, but he still has an issue. I mean, you've got the fire commie within range, even though it's distracted. You've got a G1 that you can move up, and if you can get 1 damage in, all of a sudden he's lost a form, and you're at full health.
Yeah, and with Mega Legionnaire, I really like, and I think some monsters play like this. He really likes to play a gather power dice with units, do some damage, hyper up, take a shot with all of his action dice for really high odds, 7-star, 3-star, however many power dice you need, and then he gives it back to his units. You can do that with a lot more security because you have not only the fuel truck, but I've got a Statue of Liberty on my side, well within teleporter range, so that I can get a beacon if I need to. I can get a fuel truck over there if I need to. I can get a repair if I need to. So the options are just, you have so many escape options on your unit turn that giving all your dice to your units is not that big of a gamble, and then they're able to very efficiently collect power dice for you with fire commies or secure power base with earth avatars or however you want to do it. I think that's the best way to play him, and then you can occasionally pull off the back-to-back for 4 damage if it's for the game or for an important form or whatever. But I like to roll really high odds with this guy, really high odds, just because you want that hit and run to trigger, or else a lot of times you're in a bad position, and he's so hard to hit that you may as well make sure that whatever you do, you're not wasting dice on a missed attack. That can be the downfall. So I usually sit upper 90% with Mega Legionnaire.
Which, I mean, in all of my experience with Sky Sentinel is very similar. You take very safe moves, you do damage from 7, except for your hypercost here is only 3. You're capable of doing it from 7, double damage, not have to roll twice like you do with lightning attack. And then you have the hit and run.
And the power drain.
Now, the flip side is you don't have a 7 defense alpha that gives all of your units buffs. But, the way you're leveraging his strengths here are pretty nasty. I mean, you can see you're almost a form ahead. It's 6 health to 11. So I'll be really interested to see what happens here. I'm surprised we didn't see a hyper up earlier from Philip to make it where you can't hit from 7. At least you have to come in.
Just get the cloak.
Kind of opens the board up for him.
Yeah, I think if we were to do this match again, and if maybe Philip would agree with me, I think priority number 1 is immediately hyper up into a form that's cloaked and 7 defense, so unit attacks are almost negligible. You can always heal them off with the meat slave. Legionnaire can't blast you from 7. These kinds of things are very important, so the earlier you can get that hyper form, the better. And then I think this, it certainly wouldn't be a deficit like it is currently. I wouldn't have had all the shots on the alpha that I got and all of that. I think if you stay in the mega form, get there early, it can be a really huge thing. And when you really run cloak against a monster that only blasts you, that can really ruin somebody's day. As you well know.
I do.
We all know
it well.
Does Tim has Tim played Mega Yesheth like that now against Sky Sentinel? Does he ever hyper up early? And
that's what he does every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he'll get that power base, he'll get some power die on his unit turn, and then he'll at least have 3 to hyper up and brawl a building or something, or do a stomp, or something similar to open up some portals, or remove some of the buildings that I have on his side. Maybe some cathedrals, or depends on what monster I'm playing. But yeah, he does like to hyper up early. It gives him mobility, it cloaks him, and it makes my options way less because he's got a high speed, high damage monster. So his threat range is huge. I have to play safer. He can come at me whenever he's ready.
Yeah. And looks like he's just going to do some spawns and
it's a nice countermeasures there.
Yes.
With the tower, so he won't be able to summon anything on his unit turn from that tower.
And then nesting Tornadus there. So not only do we get the power zone here, but countermeasured out that Tower of Corruption. And Tornadus is going to go block that teleporter on the other side.
So, I mean, the Cthulhu are not known for their mobility. The 2 things that give them mobility are the Towers of Corruption, which Philip only brought 2 of, and teleporters, which you are conveniently shutting down for him.
Trying my best.
So that's going to make it tough for him. You're setting a screen up there, going to make it tough for him to really come at you with his units. I mean, he'll be able to clear some of your other units out maybe. But you are again, you're playing to forcing him to do things. Which is, if you're going first, it's one of the advantages you have. You are playing in a way that is forcing him into certain things.
And keep in mind that at this point, all my units do have blue radar from Mega Legionnaire. So Tornadus hits that Cthulhu Bite with a pretty low odds attack. That was pretty lucky. And into the grinder tank. I think I did a miscalculation there, which is why that attack was so low.
It worked out for you.
It did. That was a big gamble that paid off. Definitely. And you'll notice that Elite Fire Kami had to go there in order to screen Mega Legionnaire. Just didn't want to take any chances there. And that's going to give me a safe pocket to go into this following turn if for some reason I need to jump out, and then I can jump back in there and just know that, I'll be safe.
Certainly.
But I went for that I went for the power and the Earth Avatar and all that instead of the 1 damage to try to kill Yasheth. And who knows? Who knows if that was the better move?
So at this point, if you're Philip and you're sitting there with 1 health on your alpha, you're about to take a unit turn. What is it that you're thinking? What is it that you're doing? You did cover up the transport. So not transport, the teleporters, so that he can't get a meat slave there readily. What are you thinking? What's on your brain at this point if you're Philip?
Yeah, I think healing's out of the question right now anyway because you got a 2 damage Legionnaire blast coming. You're going to be in the hyper form, so that's going to be nice. You'll have cloak now. And I think you need to slow the game down a little bit. You need to force Legionnaire over to your side if you can. But ultimately, you really have 2 ways to look at this. You can try to go back. You can be nearly unblastable in your hyper form and not worry about that and hope that Legionnaire comes over and tries to take it to you so that you can counterattack. Or you can just go all out offense. And at this point, if you've lost a form in a tournament style game, it's time to go kamikaze, because at this point, Legionnaire could sit back in a back corner and just try to run out the clock on you.
But you're in the finals, so I don't think there technically is a clock to run out, right?
Well, I don't know.
I don't remember how it was set up.
Yeah.
But I will say...
That's not the spirit of the game, too.
Correct.
That's the most important thing.
Well, says the guy that sits in the corner and shoots you all day long. Anyways, I think another viable option here, too, would be to maybe shoot the either the electrical power plant or the oil refinery, multi-shot the fire kami, and just remove any hit-and-run pockets that you might have to be able to go at. So that way you have to either go to the other side of the board or go to his side of the board, use some dice to move.
You notice that countermeasures coming in there.
Yep.
Try to put the bite there, and he's still gonna be able to do what he wants to do, I think. But at least it was kind of just a wrench in the plans there. But overall, tough match.
Yeah, it is a tough match. I think the thing that would have slowed the game way down for him, in his advantage, or at least to make it even, would have been an early hyper up. He's going to get the hyper up now, but he can't hyper down to take damage. It's a tough situation. He's only got 5 health left. So when he's there, you can hyper down and just let him go to town on you for a couple turns just to stay in threat range. If you can get 3 or 4 damage in, all of a sudden you're in your hyper, and you've got a strong advantage here.
And that was a really nice Tower of Corruption plus Brute Brawl, transmuted into, looks like a Shadow Taskmaster or Shadow something.
Yeah, I'm not certain. Now, you will see here Philip messing with the time clock, which I also want to mention for people that haven't ever played at GenCon or at a MonCon and are looking to play in a serious competitive style event. The 5-minute turns can really do some things. Like you've taken some pretty quick turns. You're taking a pretty quick one here, and you're putting Philip on the clock. So you take a 2-minute turn, and all of a sudden he's going, and you get 4 or 5 minutes to think while he's taking his turn. Then you take yours quickly again, and you can just keep the pressure on, which you're doing here.
All right, so we got a big form kill blast coming up here. It's a 6 3 4, very high odds, and it's a hit. So that's going to give Legionnaire the chance to grab a power die for that form. It's going to power drain off a power die from Philip there. And we'll see. I believe there's a hit and run potential. I don't know if I'm going to use it or not. But we've got Annihilate coming up. So things are about to get very interesting.
I think you wanted to keep that spawn zone open.
Yeah. So he's got a SWAT if he wants it, but he has to put himself next to EPP. He's got just a straight up punch for 2. Other than that, it's not. Those are really the 2 options. And so the screening has worked here to my advantage. But he may force the issue. He's sitting at 5 power die now, so this is easily a back-to-back turn if he wants it. It would be a fairly risky move, probably 70% on all sides, but I don't know. You got two big old mega forms right there. Kind of the antithesis of each other.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I kind of feel like if he can do damage, that's great, but he needs to be on his side of the board. He needs to be able to heal. He needs to make you come and finish off the game. So I don't necessarily know that offense at this point is his best option. He's got 7 defense and cloak. I mean, if there is a time clock, 15, 20 minutes from now, the game's over anyway. But it might not be that he needs to run to the other side of the board, but to stay in a position where he does draw you out, he can back-to-back, get you out somewhere where you can't hit and run into a pocket really nicely, and get a chance to kill a form or something and maybe swing this thing back in his favor. Looks like he powers up and he hits.
Yep, he got it. So he's up to 8 now. This is significant. So he's got some interesting plays here. Mega Legionnaire is 5 health form, and if he could do maybe a potential back-to-back, a 2 and a 3 or a 3 and a 2 somehow. I can't do a 3 and a 2 right now, but if there's a way, it's a good-looking move.
He's got the dice to take at least 2 turns in a row. I mean, he's in a position where he could try for 3, just depending on what happens. I think he could maybe get a form if he played it right, but that's even going to be tough. And he's also got to consider denying you to make sure you don't stock up on P dice. You're going to have a unit turn, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here.
All right, so it looks like he's going to go for a swat. Just kind of, not just use 1 P die and just a few action die and clear some units out here, stay screened up. And like you said, he's kind of forcing the issue on me where if I want a piece of him, I'm going to have to come out. Not only that, I'm going to have to get distracted by his Cthulhu bites.
Yeah.
So my odds are even less.
And he took away that cathedral, which is a lot of the pockets on that side of the board you maybe could have hit and run to.
Yeah. So you're looking in the middle of the board now, and Phillips did an excellent job here of making it look pretty desolate. The pockets are fairly rare, and you'll notice kind of, again, why I like that Privateer Press building is that still gives me some wiggle room. It's going to give me at least 1 solid side, and generally it's going to give me 2 sides of screen that I can count on.
Now, looking at this board, are you thinking put some units in place for some pockets and stay in Mega, or are you thinking, keep control of the board, and are you going to go in, maybe hyper down, and do your usual, maybe 3 or 4 damage with Legionnaire? What's going on? What are you planning here? Looking at it now, what would you be planning?
Well, I think at this point, there's a lot of things you could do here. I don't know if that's what the action dice is for, but flipping over that hazard would be nice if I had Extinguish, which I don't think I do in this force. You've also got, clearing those Cthulhu bites out would be a big deal. That puts Yasheth way out in the open. And it also gets 2 weakened, 2 distracts off the board, and it's a lot of his unit investment is in those Cthulhu bites. So clearing them out with like a Tornadus Fling or something like that would be really significant. I've still got that Earth Avatar over there in the corner. I could really look at increasing my ability to gain P die, maybe nest another Earth Avatar out and move him around to another power zone. Would be a good move here. Really, the key is I've got the advantage here. I've got the lead. I want as high odds as possible, and I want to take as little risk as possible. So I'm not looking to do a fancy hyper down, try to do 4 damage move. I'm going to keep trying to play my game. I'm going to try to set up a pocket or 2 that I can still blast Mega Yasheth from 2 away and run into something that he has no power attack potential on me. So it's a very safe game at this point. Very meticulous, very safe. Just standard Mega Legionnaire play here.
Yeah, and there's no reason with such an advantage to play anything but safe. You can take some weird risk. You can do a little bit riskier on your unit turn, maybe go for more board clear or a little bit more control, but there's no need with this kind of a lead to risk anything. You could have a few things go not in your favor and still come out ahead. So if they do go in your favor, this should be a pretty straightforward, just kind of finishing the game out. You guys have similar damage curves at this point. He can power attack for 2. You can shoot for 2. You can do 3 or 4 in your alpha. You've just got way more options than he's got.
Yeah, right now it's looking good for Legionnaire. Looks like the Elite Fire Kami and the Grunt Fire Kami are looking at maybe moving, and there's a G1 that comes to party. He's also going to move. So there's obviously some unit to unit damage that's going to happen here. I think probably the Earth Avatar is going to nest out Tornadus, who's then going to move and hit that Cthulhu Bite.
I will say it's interesting that he placed Yasheth next to the bank HQ, which is a really smart move. Because it makes it where you can't secure it no matter what, as long as that monster's there, so it's not even worth your time. Prevents you from getting some really easy unit damage in. And it looks like you're placing some units for some screens. If you get a Tornadus over there, that really lets you manipulate the board. And, not enough can be said about Red Hoist.
Oh, goodness. Goodness me.
I can't tell you how many times I've used that to break a screen or to build a screen that just wasn't there. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, so I'm going to put Tornadus in the corner there, the Insurance and the Tower Corruption. That is a really nice place for the unexpected screen pull. A lot of people, that tower is hiding that Tornadus from his sight. And
it looks like you missed.
Tried to hit that bite and totally missed. It was a high odds attack, and this is the important thing about the game is I missed the attack, but it didn't really matter too much. It would have been nice to get him down.
Would have extended the lead, but not critical.
Yeah, didn't want to do anything that is going to make or break at this point.
And
so.
you did end with a Fire Kami on a power zone. You're still screened, and then you've got Tornadus sitting there with Red Hoist. So if he doesn't deal with the Tornadus, which at this point he's got to focus quite a bit on damage, but if he doesn't deal with Tornadus, you've got a way to break screens, you've got a way to make screens, and you've just got a good unit on the board for the next time you take a unit turn.
Yeah, it's a double. I like to do a lot of stuff that is essentially double insurance, redundant moves at this point where you might move a couple of units up to disrupt a power base by destroying a unit. However, you move those units up to the buildings that are being secured anyway, so that even if you miss the last attack, you're able to soft disrupt whatever buildings are being secured. Those kinds of moves I think are important to kind of get in your head, especially because it's easy for players to say, oh, well, I can shoot from 5 away, I'm going to stay 5 away. Where if you would just go 2 away, you can actually accomplish your disruption goals twice over. And I think that's a really, really good thing to keep in mind because plans always fail.
Totally. You should. In a dice game, you should always expect the unexpected, and that's what hedging's for. That's what not putting all your game on one roll is. I also like the Fire Kami you put next to the Privateer Press building, which is another way to get some Cthulhu units down the board. He's got units nearby. He could have pretty easily secured it, but now he can't easily secure it because of the Fire Kami.
And he throws a Corruptor there on that Hell font, and this is going to prevent me from stepping. It's also going to prevent me from hit and running potentially back into that pocket. I assume that's the reason for it. And then he's also going to looks like he's going to try to make some brawls here. So he's got that Corruptor, and then I'm still pretty sure that's a Shadow Taskmaster. Classic. It's a Cthulhu favorite. Whenever I see just a black figure there that I can't make out, I assume it's a Taskmaster. It looks like he's got a lot of icons, so
it's
that
a
would
very,
make sense.
very classic unit from days of old.
And that Corruptor would give him flank against that Fire Kami, and then the Taskmaster is going to give him fling. So it's a nice looking little play here. And he even throws in a Cthulhu Bite.
Very interesting play.
And a Brute. So we're seeing the Cthulhu Brawling Force, the brawling engine that it was once so known for before the multi-shot Cthulhu Bite came in. But now we have Brutes, and we have, look at this, a weaken play.
Looks like he's going for he could fling that unit into your monster.
Yep.
He could do a lot of things here.
So it's going to be Fire Kami to Mega Legionnaire, it looks like. Which does give me the hoist. But, truth be told, there's not a lot of great power attacks here. You have a 2 damage into the bank HQ. that's pretty much it, depending on the power base and the power dice I have. If I hyper up, I get, or if I power up, I get 2 for the Earth Avatar there, 3 for the Fire Kami, and I believe that's about it. So I would have 5, which looks like that's just shy of the insurance company. So maybe there's a power dice somewhere that I'm forgetting about, or maybe it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know. You've got the 2 and the 1. I don't see any others. We'll see what happens. He looks like he is. He's going for the unit right now, right?
Yep, I believe he's got to hit that unit first.
I like how he rolls. He just drops the dice like that.
He's a dropper. All right, so that hits, and I think he just went after the monster. It looks like. So maybe that's not a Taskmaster. That would make a lot of sense.
That would make this make more sense.
There's no fling going on there.
Looks like it's your monster turn. Power up gets you 3 power dice as far as I can see. And you've got some options here.
Yeah, very, very interesting. That's a hit, so looks like I do get 3. It's going to give me 5 power die total. And what to do? I think you can make the blast here. You can end with a nice hoist into a screen. But I got to be very careful. Don't want to get this wrong.
It looks like you went for the movement and then pulled back. It's like chess. Don't let go of the piece.
Yep.
But it looks like you you let go and he grabbed it again. A little less stringent than chess, but I think the Tornados move is a good move. We'll see what you do here, but I'm pretty sure right there you're in a nice little pocket.
Yeah, just kind of looking at range. But the issue, of course, is with Cloak, you can't do that. So I'm going to move. I'm going to hoist ahead of time.
Go back into a nice little pocket. Again, the power of Tornados is just insane. Being able to create the pocket that you want wherever you want it. And then he gets to go.
So a much more elegant move here would have been to just be where I am right now, hit and run over to Tornados, hoist, and then end my turn. But at that point, if you miss the blast, you're unscreened. He comes over and he does 4 damage off that oil refinery. So again, this is kind of a double insurance thing. There was extra action die that had to be spent, but I was assuming that if I missed the attack, how can I keep this as safe for me as possible?
And again, with this kind of lead, as long as you don't give up some major attack, like if you'd missed and just been open for a power attack, there's no reason you shouldn't win, even if you miss this attack, which you don't miss. So it makes sense. You know, a lot of times you might be thinking, well, it's more efficient. I can roll more A die if I do it this way. But there was absolutely no real risk in doing it the way you did it. So the risk-reward ratio definitely panned out for you.
And he's at 3 health left in his hyper form. And I think, at this point, he has to back-to-back here for form. Get that hyper off the table, hope for an alpha blunder, and then do a nice, 4 damage smash on that alpha morpher, and hopefully get some momentum going. And it's gonna be very difficult. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah, and another hard part is gonna be the fact that he can back to back for 4 damage, but if you can heal, then he can't even get the monster. So it'll be interesting to see what he does here to maybe prevent that. I'm not sure. It looks like you can get a repair vehicle there. Yeah, you can get one there unless he somehow places. So we'll see what happens.
He'd have to block. All right, so he goes for the power up and it hits, which puts him all the way up to 10 power die. 3A for 2 power die is not a bad deal, and he's gonna get sandwiched right in there.
Now, it looks like he might be going for the SWAT on Tornados. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That allows
unit
him...
is a pesky unit.
And it allows him to come in for a potential power attack next turn if that's what he wants to do.
Which would force you to spend some A-die to screen if you didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, I'd have to heal and then I'd have to screen. So there's a lot of dice that have to be spent, and that's always good. Very good on his part. So he's going to spend half of his power die here. And he hits, so he's going to get one of those power die back. And on Mega Legionnaire, hitting that 7 defense, lowered to 6 from the Cthulhu by easy hit. And
now,
takes me down to 2.
You will see what him being in his hyper forced, which we kind of discussed earlier, which was you coming out. To get the damage in, you had to come into a position where he could at least hit you. So, had he hypered a little bit earlier and forced you to come out to play a little bit, you can imagine a brawl or two with his hyper form, or even once he gets you out, he can hyper down to take some damage and then brawl to heal it back up.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things about Yasheth that he's not benefiting from because he lost his form before he even got to your monster.
Interesting little discrepancy here. I think he forgot to grab that P die from the SWAT, which is such an easy thing for all of us to do. I've gotten in the habit of immediately after rolling that first attack, grabbing that power die and sliding it over. So that could be that's an odds difference. That's 6 P die instead of 5 P die is a significant thing.
How far you can throw, your odds, there's a lot of things that affects.
And Legionnaire at 2 damage. So yeah, do you go for the heal? Looks like I'm planning on it with the repair vehicle. Or do you just take the form and gather as much power dice as possible?
And hope you can get 3 damage, which, with Legionnaire, that's definitely a possibility. But at the same time, he'll get a monster turn next, so he definitely has the option of moving away where you're going to have to spend lots of 8 dice to get to him. If you are forced into your alpha form, that's 4 8-item move. So we'll see what happens.
And I wonder if he actually rolled 6 power die, and then
if he didn't have one to get.
Yeah, I got one because I know that he was playing very well to avoid the overload on my alpha form. So I think he wanted to stay at 5 power die because that would make it very, very nice.
That'd make it a lot easier.
Overload is a lot less stressful than crunch. I'll say that. Crunch can be very, very stressful.
Yeah, I know. In my game against Bill Lal a few weeks back, I was playing him, and if I'd missed a crunch or 2 in a row on 8 or 9 dice, it totally could have gone in his favor. So, crunch is an interesting way of getting double damage.
Yep, so I went ahead and went for the screen here with that G1 who can sit over water. One of the amazing things about those units, about flying units in general, but G1s with 8 speed.
8 speed flying units.
Come on. So we got that screened up. And as I remember, this is a mistake certainly that I made in the game. I want to say that it was done on purpose, that it was all this grand plan to get my alpha form out. But in reality, as I remember, I hit this Cthulhu bite. And that opens up the north side. It's one of those things where it's happened so often where you have plans for what you need to accomplish in your turn, and you accomplish those plans, and then you say, okay, now I need to take my shot, and that last plan counters everything you were doing in your first plan, which was screening to prevent the damage.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. I wonder what he's thinking here.
He's thinking,
just happy.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a Cthulhu bite, and then it hits. Who's it going after? Yasheth, I guess.
Yeah, looks like you guys monster. So, and I mean, even though you do open up the screen, if he kills your form, you've got units on power zones. So you should have lots of power dice. You need to get your monster in. 2 damage should not be a difficult thing with marker on your alpha. So it's an interesting choice for him because if he does put you in that form, it's. I mean, I think he's got to go for the form here, but at the same time,
totally,
it's the odds aren't horrible for you.
Yeah, and so if he goes here, he'll he's looking at really, you're looking at a throw, and I don't see any way around it. You've got to throw into that oil refinery. That's going to be 3 power dice spent, and then 1 gain back, and then 1 gain back, so he can still do another monster turn after this. So let's say he throws me over there, I take my alpha form and miss. He's probably got a 4 damage smash right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing about morphers, 2 pieces, is 1, you've got 4 and 5 defense morphers. So if he can form you, he can back-to-back and do some interesting things. But the other piece is you can't power attack at this point.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's going for the form.
And it looks like he's also used all his action dice. So he's not going to have the potential to back-to-back. And there we go. Right into that oil refinery. And so long, Mega Legionnaire. I'm sure it's a great feeling. for Philip, it always has got to be a great feeling for anyone who's played against this monster. And he throws me all the way. Now I have the option. I can put the tanks on the water in order to
Have them fly back home.
have them fly back home. And the thing is, if I don't do that, I have no way to get to the other side of the map where Mega Yashith is to get within 2. They can't go over the water. They'd have to go all the way through that fire in order to get to a teleporter to potentially get home. So
Now, if you put the tanks on the flame, wouldn't they also take the damage?
absolutely.
So if you took 2 damage there, all it takes is 1 miss on your turn, and all of a sudden he's got a very nice looking play because he can heal. You obviously probably wouldn't be able to form on your unit turn, and then all he needs is a 4 damage smash. And, at this point he's in the game. But obviously you don't place the tanks there. You place the tanks elsewhere, and it looks like you put him next to a teleporter to bring him in where you need him. And we'll see what you do, but I've got a feeling with Marker the odds are in your favor.
Actually, I think that used to be the case where morphs would take damage if they were hit on it. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think that got errated because of the fact that like you throw Zarmakris onto a fiery building and he automatically takes 4 damage to his alpha. So I don't think they would have taken the damage. Had they tried to move through the fire, they certainly would have, which one of them would inevitably have had to do. So we got the tanks, and I went ahead and just put them back there close to a teleporter just for optimum mobility. I'm looking at being within 2 spaces of Yashith here, while also getting all the necessary red abilities that Legionnaire sports.
And also preventing a terrible smash positioning. Obviously you can't take a monster turn, but probably something on your mind here. We'll see what you do. But
when you notice, I opted to not go for the power-up. Basically, I'm going to have to spend 4 action dice to move, and then I'm looking at 6 action dice to make the attack with. I don't think it was worth the 3 action dice to miss. If you miss that power,
you can only go with 3 of your units as well, or 3 of your morphers.
And really, with crunch, which is what I'm looking at here, I want as much in my hand, as many dice in my hand as possible. So we'll see. This is for the game.
All in for the
crunch
title.
And Marker, and that's
Looks
a hit.
like you get the win.
And
so
a crunch.
Game well played here.
And the amazing thing is, as it seemed like the Legionnaire had a huge advantage, but look at what happens if that attack misses. He's got more alpha forms there next to hazardous buildings, and I think that probably would have been the end of Legionnaire. Had I missed that brawl, which wasn't terribly high odds. I think it was probably 80s with Marker. And the worst thing that could have happened there was to hit the attack, but not get the crunch.
That would have been awful.
I couldn't have marketed it to re-roll it. It would have just been 1 damage, and I'd have had to try my hardest to do 1 damage on his form.
Certainly.
So thanks, guys, for listening. It's been great. I hope that I was able to share some insight into what's going through my head when I'm playing the game, and hopefully we did Philip some justice in the things that he was talking about. And always go to teamcovenant.com for Monpoc information, and we'll have always more battle ports to come out soon.
We have a few more in the pipeline, so we'll be putting those out as we near MonCon 2012.
MonCon 2012. You got to be there. Take care.